Chapter 120. The Hearing One. Basically, I'm a supplementary device for your magic, Sir Eugene. Mare's eyes sparkled as she sat on the chair. Right now, since Eugene had been given the control formula, Mare was no longer bound to witchcraft but to him. Therefore, Mare couldn't use the various spells that she had been able to use while she was linked to witchcraft. So, Sir Eugene, you prefer spatial magic, right? That kind of magic requires a high level of coordinate calculation when you are using a formula. No matter how smart you are, it won't be easy to calculate spatial coordinates perfectly while the mana fluctuates. Blink played an important role in magical combat. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the speed and proper usage of Blink determined the winner in magical combat. I will be doing such calculations for you. Of course, there are other things I can do as well. Sir Eugene, you can currently record and utilize fifth circle magic using the ring flame formula, right? That's right. Under ordinary circumstances, it's impossible to use magic belonging to a circle higher than the user's level. But you can use magic up to the sixth circle, right? If I assist you, you will be able to use magic 2 circles higher than your level. That means up to the 7th circle. Of course, I'm just saying this without having done an in-depth analysis, and it would still definitely require you to know the technique and perform the incantation. Still, it will be a lot easier than doing it with no support, Mare bragged. Especially if you cast different kinds of magic at the same time and want to harmonize the spells. It will be better for you to try it yourself rather than me explaining it. Mare grumbled as she climbed down the chair. She took a look around a couple of times, then scurried toward Eugene. Open it, please. Do we have to go inside and do it? Sir Eugene, as you can see, I'm not a fighting familiar. I can be repaired when I'm broken, but still, I'm not built for direct magical combat or hand-to-hand fighting. Mare pouted and fluttered the cloak of darkness. I am simply a magic-assisting familiar. If you have a problem with that, you can build me a combat body, Sir Eugene. Eugene stared at Mare for a moment. Combat body, huh? So basically, Mare will take care of using magic and she is asking me for a body that is suited for combat. Eugene thought about Garjith and Evitar's muscular bodies. Well, their muscular bodies were suited for combat, all right. If he put Mare's face on top of that ripped body. Eugene almost puked at the disgusting mental image. He took a couple of steps backward as he covered his mouth. While flapping the cloak up and down, Mare frowned and asked, "Why are you frowning so suddenly?" "I imagine something terrible." "That's random. Anyhow, open your cloak, please." Like Mare requested, Eugene lifted the cloak of darkness and let her in. No living being could enter the cloak, but that didn't affect Mare, who was a familiar. "What kind of magic will you be using?" Scorching Flame Ball. On the 8th floor of Akron, there was the Hall of Scorching Heat. The magic of the most powerful fire wizard in the history of Aroth was stored there. The Scorching Flame Ball Eugene wanted to use now was one of these spells. A piece of 7th circle magic. The technique was in his head. He also knew the theory, where to start and how to let the mana flow in order to perform it. However, he had never actually used it. 7th circle magic's power and impact were similar to a natural disaster, so it was something very difficult to control. Mana fluctuated. Only sticking out her head from the cloak, Mare closed her eyes as the technique in Eugene's head was shared with her. Although the magic was 2 circles higher, the mana flowed smoothly due to Eugene's inborn calculation ability and mana control skill. His calculation ability was fast already, but Mare's assist shortened the time to several seconds. Eugene continued to chant. Whoosh! A small flame appeared in front of Eugene. The flame wasn't terribly impressive at first glance. It was just a wisp that couldn't even be considered a fireball. Still, when it appeared, the room's temperature skyrocketed. Phew! Mare exhaled. Her eyes sparkled as she stared at the flame floating in front of Eugene. We did it. This spell had almost drained Eugene's cores. Eugene focused on the flame as it slowly moved forward. Its movement was slow, but the flame got exponentially bigger as it moved. The Scorching Flame Ball was one of the strongest flame ball spells, second only to Hellfire. The flame had merely moved a little bit forward, but it had already become so big that it almost filled up half of the laboratory, and it now exuded blazing heat. Then next, let's try harmonizing it with the polar opposite type of magic. Sir Eugene, you also know the Hall of Icy Chill's magic, right? Wait, Eugene said as he turned his head. He felt a presence on the other side of the laboratory door. Behind the closed door was standing the chief of the court wizards, Tremple Vizardo. He wasn't surprised when the door opened on its own, but he was indeed perplexed when he saw the flame that filled the laboratory. People outside couldn't see what was going on inside, nor feel the mana in this underground laboratory when its door was closed. Therefore Tremple had no idea what Eugene was doing when the door was closed. His jaw dropped. The scorching flame ball? From the Hall of Scorching Heat? Seventh circle. Magic? Tremple couldn't believe it and his eyes were trembling in shock. The 5 Tower Masters were at the 8th circle and so was Tremple. In the entire history of magic, there was no wizard who reached the 9th circle aside from the wise Sienna. No matter which generation it was, reaching the 8th circle was enough to be accredited as an arch-wizard. There was 1 circle difference between the 7th and the 8th circle, and that gap was truly wide indeed. But so what? As far as Tremple knew, Eugene was just 20 years old. There wasn't a single wizard who had reached the 7th circle at 20. Not now, not ever. Even among Aratha's royalty who were born to be wizards, there wasn't a single person who had reached the 7th circle at this age. Lord Eugene, how, when have you reached the 7th circle? Tremple asked, trembling. He was an arch-wizard and ever since he was young, people had called him a genius. However, even he had only been at the 4th circle when he was 20. I haven't. I'm still at the 5th circle. The heat from the scorching flame ball distorted the air around it. Eugene waved his hand and scattered the scorching flame ball. Did you say, you are a 5th circle wizard? Then how could you use the magic that is 2 circles higher? Tremple trailed off as his eyes widened. After the spell formula was scattered, the disintegrated mana didn't disappear, it returned to Eugene. Everything was far beyond Tremple's understanding. Eugene cast a spell that was higher than his circle. Not just a bit higher but 2 whole circles higher. And as for retrieving mana without waste while dispelling the magic, was this even possible? It was definitely impossible for Tremple. He was at the 8th circle and could never use 9th circle magic regardless of how hard he tried or what method he used. Moreover, when a wizard dispelled their magic in the middle of casting it, they could retrieve some of the mana used, but it was impossible to recover most of it the way Eugene was. On top of that, he was doing it with such high-level magic. Grabbing onto his dizzy head, Tremple took a few steps backward. If a 5th circle wizard can use 7th circle magic, can that wizard be called a 5th circle wizard? Wouldn't it be more accurate to classify a wizard's circle according to the magic they use? Hello. This greeting did nothing to clear Tremple's discombobulation. Seeing Mare sticking her head out of Eugene's cloak, Tremple's legs turned into jelly and he collapsed on the floor. Ha-ahoo. Sir Tremple, I understand your surprise. Don't worry, the only reason Sir Eugene could use 7th circle magic was that he had the assistance of Lady Sienna's familiar me. Mare pompously lifted her chin high. He can't use it without my assistance. I'm cool, aren't I? Ha-ahoo. Are you here for the hearing? Eugene spoke as he patted the humming mare's head. Tremple belatedly came to his senses and picked himself up. Yes, Lord Eugene. Your hearing will be held today. Today? It's faster than I thought. I thought it would take a few more days. The agenda is quite serious. Originally, Tremple was planning to act solemnly and high-handedly. He was going to browbeat Eugene and bring him to the hearing nice and tender, but he had instead disgracefully fallen on his buttocks. Where is the hearing held? Is it going to be held in the Abram Palace as usual? We were planning to do so, but the Red Tower Master ardently refused. Frowning, Tremple walked through the laboratory's hallway. As you may know, Lord Eugene, aside from the royal family and the court wizards, no one can use magic in the Abram Palace. The restriction also applies to Tower Masters. Yes, I heard so. According to the Red Tower Master, it was wrong to hold a hearing when you didn't commit any sins, and it was even more wrong to hold it on Abram where magic is forbidden. The Red Tower Master. That guy is too untrusting. It's not like the royal family and Aratha's court wizards will persecute you using the hearing as an opportunity, right? I don't necessarily see it that way, a new voice interrupted. The air in front of them distorted and then parted as Lovelian stepped out from it. I just thought that it didn't make sense, Tremple. I believe you are a righteous man and the royal family is fair. Tremple grunted. My disciple Sir Eugene hasn't committed any crimes. So why should he be summoned to a hearing? And why should the hearing be held in Abram, where wizards become powerless. Stop it, Lovelian. Didn't the location already change from Abram to the Annex Palace at the Outer Lake because of your adamant opposition? You were going to hold it in the tribunal. It only changed to the Annex Palace because I opposed the idea. Goodness gracious. Why would you say such unnecessary stuff? Lord Eugene, don't get any wrong ideas. I do not agree with the hearing. I don't like the idea whether it's done at Abram or at a tribunal. I understand. The Prime Minister is just too stubborn about it. Well, as you know well, Akasha is a meaningful treasure for Aroth in many ways. It's not Arotha's treasure, it's Lady Sienna's treasure, Lovelian snapped as he glared at Tremple. Oh dear. Why are you taking it out on me? Did I do it? Damn it, I already feel bitter about me, the chief of the court wizards, becoming an errand boy. Don't get too angry. That means Arotha's royal family trusts you very much. Right, that's right. Tremple's anger calmed in no time as he stroked his beard. The 5 Tower Masters, the head of the Wizard Guild, and the chief of court wizards attended the hearing. It wasn't an exaggeration to call these 7 wizards the symbol of Aroth. Do you know what I saw? As he sat down, Tremple's face crumpled into a frown. Lord Eugene casting the scorching flame ball of the 7th circle. Is that true? The head of the Wizard Guild, Edgar Geron, opened his 2 eyes wide and stared at Tremple. That's unbelievable. Isn't Eugene Lionheart 20 years old? How could he reach the 7th circle? He did say he is actually at the 5th circle. How could the 5th circle wizard use 7th circle magic? How should I know? Tremple blurted out with a frown. With trembling eyes, Edgar turned to stare at Lovelian, who was sitting across. However, Lovelian didn't give Edgar any explanation. He just watched Eugene with a proud look on his face. You must feel so uneasy right now, the White Tower Master Melkith Elhaya smirked as she watched Edgar. Aren't you still at the 7th circle? You must be 3 times older than that kid. There is only a thin wall ahead of me. Didn't you also say that 5 years ago? You busted your ass for 5 years and you still failed to reach the 8th circle. But when I ask, you always talk about that thin wall. With just a small bit of enlightenment I can go over that wall. White Tower Master, don't insult me too much. Are you comparing me to that young child right now? Well, it's not really an insult, but yeah, I am comparing you. Melkith giggled and clapped. Edgar's hair rose and he was ready to shoot out all kinds of curse words. However, he couldn't really say them to Melkith. That annoying, frivolous woman was an archwizard at the 8th circle and the only grand spirit summoner who had contracts with 2 spirit kings. The 7th circle, huh? Did Akasha make it possible? The Green Tower Master, Generic Osman, looked the most vicious among the 7 wizards. Watching Eugene, who was sitting on his chair, Generic blurted, if it wasn't for Akasha, it would be impossible to reach the 7th circle at his age. Don't judge him as you please, Lovelian spoke. Sir Eugene already knew how to use magic of the higher circles before he became Akasha's master. Humph. You are trying awfully hard to stick up for your disciple Lovelian Sophies. Oh wait, is it because he is the son of Lionheart, not because he is your disciple? Generic's sharp eyes turned to Lovelian. Well, that's understandable. You saw the idiotic first son before him, so who wouldn't look better than him? But you are going too far, Red Tower Master. Akasha is Arotha's treasure. To think that a Lionheart is taking it away. No, the Keel Empire is taking it away. You have no right to insult Sir Ued. Red energy stirred up like a hurricane in Lovelian's eyes. And I believe you aren't angry just because Sir Eugene took away Akasha, aren't you? You are angry because you wanted Akasha for yourself so desperately, but it chose someone else as its master. That's some hell of a love for your disciple. You are well aware I can never let that kind of comment just slide with a smile, right? Generic said. Of course I do. How long have we known each other? It's at least been 40 years. I know how much you obsess about your title of Wise Sienna's disciple, and I know that you look down on me and the Red Tower, thinking only the Green Tower is the rightful successor of Lady Sienna. Lovelian snorted and turned his eyes away from Generic. However, Lady Sienna was the Green Tower Master 300 years ago. Isn't it ridiculous for the Green Tower to obsess over that and brag about your self-proclaimed title of successor of Lady Sienna? No matter how much you argue and insist, Akasha chose Sir Eugene. You bastard. Unable to hold his anger anymore, Generic sprang right up from his seat. Melkith clapped and cheered as if she had waited for this exact moment. Fight! Fight! The Blue Tower Master, Herodus Usland, clucked his tongue as he glared at Melkith. What in the world are you doing right now? Aren't you embarrassed in front of the young man? I have no intention of fighting. Lovelian smirked as he shrugged. The Green Tower Master was inappropriately carried away by his feelings, that's all. Generic gritted his teeth as vast mana swarmed around him. Lovelian sneered and called upon his own mana to fight back against the Green Tower Master. Rumble. The immense mana stirred up by the two shook the entire annex. He is tougher than I expected. Sitting in his seat, Eugene watched the whole scene unfold. His teacher, Lovelian, never lost his temper in front of Eugene. He had met Lovelian when he was 13, and back then as well Lovelian was pleasant and gentle with the children, a kind and benevolent teacher. Still, that did not mean that he was weak. He was very strict with the Red Tower's wizards. If they made a single mistake during the magic experiment, Lovelian would suddenly appear and severely rebuke them. Even right now, Lovelian quarreled with Generic without letting the latter's words slide. Why does that bastard keep watching me? That's uncomfortable, Eugene thought. The Black Tower Master, Balzac Ludbeth, was also attending this hearing. Lovelian and Generic were fighting with mana right under his nose, but Balzac paid no attention and just gazed at Eugene. Crown Prince Honian has arrived. The guards outside the Annex Palace announced the arrival of the Crown Prince. The mana in the air, which was becoming larger and larger, as if the two wizards were going to devour each other, subsided instantly. All wizards, including Eugene, rose from their seats. To be honest, I didn't want to attend this hearing. Honian Abram entered the hall with an awkward smile. It was just a tiff, Lovelian said as he bowed. Is His Majesty not attending? That's right. His Majesty allocated this matter to me and the Prime Minister, Honian answered, turning back to look at the old man who followed him. Frankly, His Majesty does not feel pleasant about this matter. However, the problem should be treated fairly, so the royal family can't put their personal feelings first. On top of that, if a king personally handled this matter, then it would put Lord Eugene in an awkward position. Is the king really being considerate? Eugene thought without lifting his head. He just doesn't want to take responsibility. Of course, he couldn't say that out loud in front of Honian. Raise your heads, everyone. And please take a seat. Honian sat in the center seat. First, I would like to clarify the purpose of this hearing. This hearing is not about Aroth and Keel's relationship. It's also not about persecuting the Lionheart clan using the royal family's power, Honian continued as he stared at Eugene. The Lionheart clan shouldn't be persecuted, and there is no reason to do so. As the Red Tower Master stated, it's not like Lord Eugene has committed any crime. Your Majesty, the Prime Minister sitting beside him whispered. Akron had been storing Akasha for 200 years. Akron is Arotha's royal library, and everything in Akron belongs to the Aroth royal family. That's right, Honian continued as he nodded. However, it's not like Lord Eugene stole Akasha. Although Akasha belonged to Aroth indefinitely, its master was the Wise Sienna, and Lord Eugene stated that the Wise Sienna personally handed Akasha over to Eugene. That is the purpose of this hearing, to check the validity of his claim, the Prime Minister said as he turned to Eugene. 200 years have passed since Lady Sienna secluded herself. But he is now telling us that Lady Sienna is alive and handed Akasha's ownership to another person. It's hard to blindly believe his claim. Cannot believe it. Lovelian blurted as he squinted his eyes. Prime Minister Conrel. Does that mean my disciple is lying? I'm just talking about possibilities, Conrel said as he stroked his beard. 200 years is a long time. We have been desperately searching for Lady Sienna, but we failed to find even a trace of her. How could she just hand over the ownership of Akasha? Even if it's true, Akasha has belonged to Akron, to Aroth for 200 years. So wouldn't it be right for the Aroth royal family to claim Akasha? Claim something that they can't even use? Melkith chuckled. Well, yes. It's true that Akasha has belonged to Aroth for 200 years. But to claim that Aroth is Akasha's master, isn't it rather ridiculous? White Tower Master. Conrel tried to interrupt her, but Melkith continued. What am I wrong? For over 200 years, no one could become Akasha's master. From former kings to every wizard in Akron, Akasha recognized no one as her master. I'm not a wizard, Conrel answered as he snorted. I am aware that Akasha is the Archwizard's staff, but I can't really feel it. Still, I can feel that it is the royal family's treasure. Everything in Akron belongs to the royal family. No one could become Akasha's owner, but despite all that, Akasha belongs to the royal family. The hermit from 200 years ago reclaiming her ownership. I feel like that's a very shameless act. When Conrel said that, Lovelian sprang right up from his seat. Lovelian fiercely glared at Conrel. However, Conrel didn't flinch even facing Lovelian's sharp eyes. Don't glare at me too much. I serve the royal family and I am responsible for Aratha's state affairs. It is only natural for me to act for Arath. Can I say something too? After being quiet all this time, Eugene spoke. Go ahead. Conrel nodded. Eugene stood up as he quietly cleared his throat. Lady Sienna is alive. Staring at Conrel, he continued, and she said to me that she will return to Arath and knock over the entire whole country. What? I swear on my mana that everything I said just now is true. Lady Sienna is not only alive, but also furious with Arath. Honian dropped his jaw. I am not sure how she will vent her wrath. As far as I know, the Abram Palace was a gift from Lady Sienna. The lake that surrounds the palace was also made by Lady Sienna. Isn't the palace's devil seal circle also the work of Lady Sienna? So, she might drown the whole palace. Or else, she might pour a meteor shower on the palace. It's none of my business though. After that, Eugene sat in his seat. Sir Lovelian. Yes. Lovelian flinched. I will put in a good word about you to Lady Sienna so that you and the Red Tower of Magic won't suffer any damage. What was Lovelian supposed to say to that? He opened his mouth to answer a couple of times, but ended up just nodding instead. Thank you. Chapter 121. The Hearing 2. Honestly, Eugene's fuse had snapped. That was why he had said such things. Still, he had no intention to swear no matter the circumstance. No, isn't this better? It seemed like since Eugene was the one who mentioned an oath first, they didn't mention it anymore. Basically, he had justified his own actions. He had sworn to tell them and then talked about Sienna out of the blue because he just didn't want to hear Conrel's babbling anymore. He had acted on impulse, but it appeared to be very effective. The name Wise Sienna meant a lot in Arath. Besides, the wizards attending this hearing all had Akron passes and they were archwizards who had been using witchcraft for dozens of years. Therefore they could never look down upon Sienna. Everyone here was an archwizard, but there wasn't a single one of them who created their own magic at a level even close to witchcraft. Aside from the head of the wizard guild, Edgard, the 6 wizards were at the 8th circle. They knew how high and sturdy the wall to the 9th circle was. Even if they spent their remaining time trying to reach the 9th circle, there was no guarantee that they would be able to. Not to mention, the wise Sienna may have surpassed the 9th circle by now. In other words, Sienna was a mystery to the wizards. She was at a level that other wizards could never reach. They could never put Sienna in the same sentence as themselves, and that was why they instinctively feared her. Drowning, Balzac spoke. He chuckled as he stroked his chin. Lady Sienna is more than capable of doing such things. Black Tower Master. Conrel turned back to Balzac with a pale face. I'm just saying that Sir Eugene is not exaggerating. Actually, it wouldn't take Lady Sienna to do so. Even I can sink the Abram Palace to the bottom of the lake. If I can, that means all other Tower Masters can. On top of that, Lady Sienna is a supreme wizard, overwhelmingly more powerful than we are. Even 200 years ago, no Tower Master at the time was better than Lady Sienna. Balzac was speaking without a single doubt. If Lady Sienna returns to Arath and tries to drown Abram Palace, whoever could block Lady Sienna's magic? I sure can't. Balzac dramatically raised his 2 hands. It would be impossible to stop her even if all Tower Masters gathered their forces. The Blue Tower Master, Herodotus, murmured as he stroked his beard. I completely agree with the Black Tower Master. I'm a wizard before I'm the master of the Blue Tower. I have heard legends of Lady Sienna ever since I was a little kid. I still deeply respect Lady Sienna. I don't wish to resist Lady Sienna's wrath. If she appears because she's angry, then I will instantly kiss the ground and beg for forgiveness. What are? Dumbfounded, Conrel shook his head. He wasn't a wizard, so he couldn't understand the Tower Masters. To explain it in easy terms, Conrel, Melkith began to speak, grinning. Creating something is tricky and bothersome. I'm not sure if you have a talent for carpentry, but let's say you are making a chair or a desk. What are you talking about so suddenly? Be quiet and listen. If you're going to make a chair and a desk, it will take a long time. Creating something is usually annoying and requires time. But destroying it? It's very easy. It's not so difficult to destroy something that has been already created. You can just throw it against the wall or smash it with a hammer. Conrel understood what Melkith was saying. 200 years ago, didn't Lady Sienna build the Abram Palace in a week? She collapsed the ground to build a lake, moved the palace on top of it and put many spells in place. But she wouldn't need a week to destroy the palace. She'd need, what, an hour at most? Conrel's face turned pale. Now he finally understood the Tower Master's source of fear that had been a mystery to him before. Boom. Melkith dramatically mimicked the sound. Her voice was small but Conrel's shoulder flinched. That's how the palace sinks. Who can stop her? I agree with the Black and Blue Tower Masters. If Lady Sienna wishes to do so, I won't stop her. I'm going to run far away, but not that far away. I'm going to watch the whole thing, and if Lady Sienna seems less angry, I'm going to quietly approach her and hand her a cold drink. Are you seriously? Conrel raised his tone in anger. If you really want to stop Lady Sienna, then ask the court wizard to stop her, not us, Melkith mockingly continued. Conrel quietly turned his head to Tremple, but Tremple's face crumpled into a frown. Ahem, Conrel cleared his throat. Honian tried to calm down and wake up from this shock. He held his breath a couple of times, took a deep breath and looked at Eugene. Did Lady Sienna really say so? I swore, didn't I? I did not lie, Your Highness, Eugene answered. Why did she say such a thing? There are many reasons, but I can only tell you one. The wizards in Arath do not respect Lady Sienna. Respect. Conrel abruptly interrupted them. What in the world are you talking about? For 200 years, Arath has done nothing but respect Lady Sienna. We built a plaza and named it after her. We managed her mansion and built so many statues of her. Do you think that's it? We altered all educational curricula in Arath's school so children can learn to respect Lady Sienna. You have been using the plaza and the mansion as a tourist spot. That is. Besides, the Arath wizards have been abusing the familiar that Lady Sienna left for a long time. You are seriously not going to say dissecting the familiar wasn't abuse, are you? That was inevitable for the development of magic and locating Lady Sienna, Conrel stuttered. Yes, please save that for the furious Lady Sienna who will appear later. Anyhow, Lady Sienna handed Akasha over to me, and she requested me to take care of the familiar. What did you say? Aside from Lovelian and Tremple, no one knew this. Eugene dramatically lifted his cloak of darkness. Did Lady Sienna really say she's going to drown Abram because she's furious about my treatment? As if she waited for this, Mare stuck her head out. She looked up at Eugene with sparkling eyes, feeling touched and excited at the same time. Yeah. Do you know how angry Lady Sienna got when I talked about you? I'm not bullshitting, I almost ran away because I was so scared, Eugene answered. How could you distort the truth? Conrel raised an outcry. When he did, Mare swiftly turned her head at the outcry. Distort the truth? Hey, you old man. You are the one who's distorting the truth. I'm right here. I, the living witness and subject of the abuse. How can you spout this kind of bullshit? Oomph. Did you bring out the familiar of witchcraft? How? No, is it okay to do that? Honian urgently asked. Witchcraft was the center of the Hall of Sienna and the most valuable treasure in Akron. He didn't mind if it was Akasha, a staff that couldn't be used, but he could never overlook the loss of witchcraft. Yes, it's okay. I only brought out Mare, witchcraft is still in there. But, the familiar, Honian fumbled. All Mare did in the Hall of Lady Sienna was wait until the elevator door opened and say, Welcome to the Hall of Wise Sienna, right? Eugene spoke as if it wasn't big of a deal. However, Mare puffed out her cheeks in annoyance. Fidgeting inside the cloak, Mare pinched Eugene's waist. Wrong. I do a lot of other stuff. I clean, organize the bookshelf, and other familiars without intelligence can do that too. It doesn't have to be you. Don't interrupt me and go back inside. You are trash, Sir Eugene. Pouting in frustration, Mare went back inside the cloak. Anyhow, I brought Akasha and Mare out because it was Lady Sienna's wish. She personally requested me to have Akasha. How could I say no to that? It will also be disrespectful to Lady Sienna to hand over her gift without her permission, Eugene said. Although he didn't say it directly, everyone in this hearing knew what Eugene was talking about. No matter what kind of excuse they used, taking away Akasha from Eugene meant disrespecting the wise Sienna. So Lady Sienna is alive. That's fortunate news, Balzac spoke. Out of all people, Balzac was saying something like that. Everyone's eyes turned to him. In spite of everyone's blatant stare, Balzac simply grinned and shrugged. I'm not implying anything else. I respect Lady Sienna as a fellow wizard. There are still some people who doubt the Black Wizards and the Demon King of Incarceration. Sir Eugene, would you please unveil the truth about her seclusion here? Wow. Eugene stared at Balzac. Vermouth had hurt her, so she had to seclude herself. The reason she wasn't able to recover was the attack of the Black Dragon Raizakia. Maybe the Demon King of Incarceration was behind all that. However, Sienna didn't mention who could possibly be behind all this. Could Eugene interrogate Balzac for this? That was too risky. Lady Sienna secluded herself to cultivate. I will just answer it vaguely, Eugene thought. Another reason for her seclusion was to protect the elves from the demonic disease, since Helmuth isn't taking any responsibility for it. Balzac smiled bitterly and shook his head. I have to stay neutral regarding the demonic disease. So please keep this in mind. To take the responsibility for the demonic disease, the Demon King of Incarceration is bestowing a lot of charity to the elves who naturalized to Helmuth. That's none of my business. Eugene showed a twisted smile. I understand your situation. Honian began to speak after deep thought with mixed emotions on his face. First, I believe everyone in the Magic Kingdom of Aroth will be happy to hear that Lady Sienna is alive. Even if Lady Sienna is furious with Aroth, as the Crown Prince of Aroth, I will be welcoming Lady Sienna's return. Even if Lady Sienna tries to sink the palace? Melkith mischievously asked. Shuddering, Conrel glared at Melkith, but Honian unhesitatingly nodded. I believe Lady Sienna's wrath is valid. Even if it was done hundreds of years ago, it is true that the Aroth wizards abused Lady Sienna's familiar. But, Your Highness, no matter how much Lady Sienna is revered in Aroth, threatening the royal family, Conrel murmured. We still have to take responsibility, Honian continued as he glared at Conrel. Or what, are you going to summon the entire court wizards to fight against Lady Sienna? If we do so, wouldn't countless wizards take Lady Sienna's side? Right now, 3 out of 5 Tower Masters just stated that they won't be participating, didn't they? For actually, Lovelian spoke after staying quiet all this time. I think it's unnecessary to even say this, but I consider myself as Lady Sienna's disciple. I will never go against Lady Sienna. I think it also applies to the Green Tower Master. Generic didn't answer but just glared at Eugene with fiery eyes. Eugene read blatant and intense jealousy from his fiery eyes. Then we will have to exclude everyone from the towers in this fight. Lord Edgard, how about the Wizard Guild? Honian asked. If the royal family wishes so, I will provide support. However, I cannot force the wizards in the guild, Your Highness. Please understand that, Edgard answered. Of course. The guild isn't an army. How could the people of Aroth? Conrel's fists trembled in anger, but no one tried to change their mind after hearing Conrel. Don't delude yourself, Prime Minister. Aroth has no intention to wage war against Lady Sienna. Even Lady Sienna wouldn't want that, Honian continued, sighing. I desperately hope that an apology from the royal family will be enough to calm Lady Sienna's anger down. Lord Eugene, what do you think? Do you think Lady Sienna will really sink Abram into the water? Eugene thought about Sienna's personality. He would expect no less of her. If I put in a good word, she won't sink the palace. Maybe she will just tear down the palace walls a little bit. Eugene trailed off. Aroth won't claim the ownership of Akasha, Honian answered as he nodded. Of course, we will also be guaranteeing the freedom of Lady Sienna's familiar. To prove our sincerity, we will grant the familiar a citizen card. That is also unprecedented, Melkith interrupted as she chuckled. A familiar with a citizen card. No offense. I'm just amazed since this is unprecedented. Do you wish for anything else? Honian asked. Honian's thoughts jumbled. From the start, Honian had figured that it was impossible to take Akasha away from Eugene. If Honian stubbornly persisted, then he would really be burning the bridge to Eugene. Honian desired Eugene's allegiance very much. He had even promised Eugene the seat of the chief court wizard. The promise was made verbally, but he was really going to honor it. That wasn't all. He had even promised Eugene to show him the second volume of Witchcraft, which was being kept by the Aroth royal family. That was the best treatment that the king of Aroth could offer to a wizard. I was going to gain his favor by derailing the hearing and handing over Akasha, Honian thought. Ever since the wise Sienna was brought up, the hearing was no longer about interrogating Eugene. Instead, they were the ones tiptoeing around him. No, since Lady Sienna handed Akasha over to him, things were bound to turn out this way. Still, the tide overwhelmingly turned in Eugene's favor after he mentioned how Sienna was going to knock over Aroth herself. Honian genuinely believed it was really fortunate that it was he who was attending this hearing instead of his father. In the end, two things were set in stone. The kingdom of Aroth did not want a war against the wise Sienna, and the kingdom had to tiptoe around one young wizard. They were both things that a king could never admit to. Let's wrap it up. Feeling mixed emotions, Honian stood up from his seat. Conrel was way past feeling conflicted, his whole face was miserably contorted. He really didn't want to accept the result. This wasn't a hearing, nor was it an interrogation. Normally, in cases like this, the participants had an in-depth conversation, considered their interests and prioritized their country's profits. That was why he, the prime minister, had come. But what was this? This was just a quarrel between children. They were just retreating because the other side was bigger and stronger. But that is the nature of politics. With a crumpled face, Conrel sighed. He wasn't a wizard, but he had to admit it. The wise Sienna had secluded herself 200 years ago, and if she was still alive and had become stronger, one kingdom wouldn't be enough to handle her. Interesting, thought Eugene. He liked when problems solved themselves, but he felt a bit bitter. No, well, Sienna is worth the respect. She was the greatest wizard in history. She was one of the 5 people who killed 3 of the Demon Kings 300 years ago. Eugene knew Sienna well, so he didn't really feel nervous around her. However, the wise Sienna was a legend just by and of herself for the wizards of the later generations. They couldn't even imagine going against her. Then what about me? The stupid Hamel. This is all because I have stupid in front of my name. Damn it, Sienna. Couldn't you find a better word than stupid? The strongest Hamel, the absolute Hamel, the Azura Hamel. When Hamel swung his sword as he shouted Azura Rampage, he would really become a demon. But then Molin's assessment of Azura Rampage came to Eugene's mind, and the Hamel style also. The strongest Hamel's lightning counter. The absolute Hamel's dead end. The Azura Hamel's Azura Rampage. Eugene couldn't take it anymore and slapped himself hard. Chapter 122, The Hearing 3. A citizen requires a surname too. Then is your name going to be Mayor Meridian? Eugene had suddenly gotten something to tease Mayor over. As the thought came to his mind, he turned to Mayor and smirked. Mayor Meridian. You are truly something, Sir Eugene, Mayor muttered as she was seething. Didn't Sir Hamel die when he was 38? And you are 20 years old right now, Sir Eugene. Yeah, that's right, Eugene answered. So if we add your age from the past life, then you are 58 years old right now. It's close to 60. How could you be so childish? Tremple Vizardo is close to 70, but he said I was a flighty rule breaker because I flew across the city, Eugene retorted, but he felt bitter. The moment when he had felt great about calling Seal a flighty rule breaker came to his mind. He thought that when he met Seal again he should really apologize to her about that. I never wished for a surname, but I don't really mind even if my name becomes Mayor Meridian. Lady Sienna gave me the name, and Meridian is Lady Sienna's surname whom I really like and respect. I think your name came from Meridian. That can't be possible. Lady Sienna is wiser and more considerate than you know, Sir Eugene. There must be some other reason why my name is Mayor, Mayor quickly replied. I really don't think there is another reason. How could you possibly know what Lady Sienna thinks, Sir Eugene? I am Mayor Meridian. Besides, I can't use your surname and become Mayor Lionheart. Actually, it wouldn't be that bad, would it? Mayor stopped speaking as she was absorbed in thought. Mayor had complete faith in the fairy tale. She had never thought that Sienna was the author of the fairy tale. That was understandable, that fairy tale. The first edition was too much even in Mayor's eyes. The beautiful Sienna, the cute Sienna. Those were the actual words written in the book. That fairy tale must have been written by one of Lady Sienna's followers. If Mare thought rationally, that was the reasonable answer. It wasn't rare for such things to happen. Even in this generation, many people still followed the hero and his companions for killing the demon kings. Therefore, everyone on the continent must have followed the hero and his companions 300 years ago. Sir Eugene and Lady Sienna didn't say that the fairy tale was a complete fiction, Mare thought. But then a line from the book came to her mind. Sienna, I really liked you. Even if Sir Eugene denies having said such a thing, the book was written in a way for Sir Hamel to leave that kind of will. Then doesn't it mean there was something going on between them? Mare recalled Sienna's life in Arath. She had taught her magic to her 3 disciples. The disciples had given their hearts and souls for Sienna to not be lonely. She had also opened her heart to the disciples. The only people who personally interacted with Sienna were the disciples and Mare. Mare remembered Sienna used to bury herself in the magic research without sleeping for days in the empty mansion. Dozens of party invitations came every month, but Sienna never accepted the invitation. She never even opened them. Sir Eugene said Lady Sienna considers me like a daughter. Mare clenched her small fist. When a man and a woman got married, the couple's surname was decided by their family's power. Whoever was from the stronger family got to keep their surname. The surname Meridian belonging to the wise Sienna, or the surname Lionheart belonging to the most prestigious house on the continent. If she became Mare Meridian, nothing would change, but what if she became Mare Lionheart? If she welcomed Sienna with the surname of Lionheart? What are you thinking about? Eugene asked as he turned back to Mare. She flinched after being brought to reality. Yeah. What? What could you possibly think about to space out that hard? You're even drooling. Nope. I'm not drooling. Mare quickly wiped her mouth. She really wasn't drooling. So what are you going to do now? Are you really going with Mare Meridian? Mare Lionheart doesn't sound so bad, she quietly answered. No, you can't use it. Why? Because that's out of my authority. It's true the main house loves me, but that doesn't mean I can name you Lionheart as I please. Wouldn't it be okay if you become the patriarch, Sir Eugene? She asked. Do I have to become a patriarch to name you Mare Lionheart when I don't even want the seat? Eugene grumbled as he stared at the document for the citizen card in front of Mare. The slot for her surname was still blank. Then how about Sir Lovelian's surname? He said he didn't mind. I know the Red Tower Master is a nice person, but that doesn't mean I want his surname. I also don't want to burden the Red Tower Master into having a daughter when he didn't even get married yet, Mare shrugged. In the end, Mare became Mare Meridian. Since the superior office had ordered the person in charge beforehand, Mare's citizen card was issued right away. Mare held up her citizen card with both hands, eyes sparkling. I feel like I became a human. I honestly can't tell the difference, said Eugene. That's because you are looking away from the truth, Sir Eugene. You know better than anyone else that I'm not a human. The only reason I can exist like this is that my control formula is engraved inside you. Mare giggled as she rose up from her seat. Aside from Lady Sienna, no wizard will be able to build a familiar that behaves as human-like as I do. So I'm not a human. I'm more like a golem. Golem? Eugene asked. The golem built by Hera a few years ago came to his mind. She said the golem was made with carbrium, but it was impossible to call it a human. It is a big taboo in magic to create life. Lady Sienna was arrogant and was more of a wizard than any other wizard, but she never committed taboo. There was no blood running inside Mare. She didn't even have a heart or other organs. The fact I can move doesn't necessarily mean I'm alive. Life means soul, every living being has it. I don't have a soul. My ego was built based on Lady Sienna's childhood memories. I am simply an artificial intelligence that is capable of learning on its own. You have given me freedom by engraving my control formula in yourself. But my root still resides in witchcraft. Mare smiled. Eugene quietly stared at her as she continued. Just look at this citizen card. A citizen card is synchronized with the owner's blood and only a living being can shed blood. Although it serves a similar purpose, it's hard to call machine oil blood, right? You are too strict with yourself. Eugene tousled Mare's hair as he grumbled. Artificial intelligence? So what? You don't blindly follow orders, you make your own judgment. Blood and oil don't run inside you, but mana does. What does that have to do with this? I gain something as the owner of a... Eugene pulled aside his cloak to show a... Akasha synchronizes with my consciousness to transform the spells that I have analyzed and learned into their optimal state. In other words, it understands magic. Akasha improves the owner's understanding of magic, but it's not perfect. Right now, I can't understand every piece of magic that composes you. However, I do understand this. Mana is the foundation of life. Foundation? Yes, that's why it has infinite possibilities. So what if only a living being can bleed? Mana runs in your body instead of blood. Rather than bone and flesh, perfectly bonded mana makes up your body. You can't convince me with those kinds of words. I told you Akasha helped me understand magic. I can't completely understand your control formula, but I do understand how your body was made. I can actually see it right now. Eugene squinted as he stared at Mare. Mare, you're right that Sienna is arrogant, more of a wizard than anyone else and didn't commit a taboo. Just as you are strict because you were built based on Sienna's childhood personality, Sienna was strict and adhered to the rules when it came to magic. Still, she was mischievous and somewhat twisted. It wasn't just Sienna. A wizard, especially an archwizard, would inevitably fall into madness while trying to become stronger. Sienna does not commit taboos, she works around taboos. You are not technically a human, but Sienna still made you a human by working around the taboo, not committing it. Mare tried to hold back her tears, her face crumpled. Mare Meridian, you should be proud of yourself and you should be proud of this fact. A weird sound escaped from Mare's mouth. Her pouting lips trembled and her eyes became teary. Eugene had a mischievous smile on his face as he watched her. Are you crying again? I'm not. Your personality is based on Sienna's when she was a child. Then doesn't it mean Sienna was a crybaby if you are a crybaby? Eugene teased her. No, that's not true. I'm not a crybaby and Lady Sienna isn't a crybaby. Come on, she is a crybaby. Sienna cried a lot when I died. Not only did she cry a lot after I died, but she also cried when she met me this time. Lady Sienna is just sensitive. She has a very kind and beautiful heart, so she cries when the situation demands it. Of course, Mare defended Sienna. Well, that's the definition of a crybaby. Eugene kept teasing Mare as they stepped outside. You finally came. Melkith Alhaya was wearing a big pair of sunglasses and a fur hat. The sunglasses were covering half her face, and the fur hat made Eugene question her fashion sense. Was that a foxtail sticking out of the fur coat? The fluffy fur around her neck seemed to symbolize her stubbornness. What are you doing here? The White Tower Master twisted her curly hair underneath the hat. I was waiting for you. Melkith's eyes were on the cloak of darkness that Eugene wore. The cloak was originally her artifact. She had treasured it so much that she had rarely worn it. Melkith took a big breath and strode toward Eugene. Didn't it get worn out a bit? That's not possible. As you may know as the former owner, an appearance restoration spell is cast on the cloak, Lady Melkith, Eugene answered. Former owner? That cloak is mine. Oh right. I have been using it for over 3 years, so I forgot. You have 6 years left. Did you come all the way here to tell me that? No way. Lowering her sunglasses, Melkith glared at Eugene. The hearing had ended the day before, so she thought this was the perfect moment to speak with Eugene. However, she couldn't because Lovelian had left with Eugene right after the hearing ended. She thought it was better that he had left like that, since she didn't have to resist the temptation. It had already been a few days since Eugene came to Arath, and Melkith knew about his arrival on the first day. She had been patient in her own way, doing her best to suppress her desire to visit him. I can't let him think I am the one who needs to meet him. Since she had been patient for a few days, she thought it would be okay to visit now. Is WID doing all right? What's there for it to not be all right? You have a nasty tongue. Let me tell you something first. I won't be lending WID to you, Lady Melkith. Isn't it tiring and bothersome for both of us? And it's not just us. I have to report to the Black Lion Castle to lend it to you, and they also need to send an observer. Hey kid. Although it is good to do things by the book, a wizard should sometimes challenge and flout the rules. You are a Lionheart, but you are also a wizard, aren't you? After quietly listening to Melkith, Mare burst into laughter. Melkith tilted her head in confusion, failing to understand why Mare laughed. What? Why is she laughing? She just heard the same thing from somebody else a moment ago. I assume it was you, wasn't it? Great, you see through the true nature of wizards. Melkith bragged as she patted Eugene's shoulder. Yes, kiddo. A wizard should be shrewd. Without violating the rules, a wizard should go around them and pursue their own profit. If you lend me W only for a few days and we all stay quiet about this, then no one will know. No matter what you say, I'm not lending you W. As you said, Lady Melkith, I'm a wizard but I'm also a lion heart. I'm guessing I can't persuade you. Melkith knitted her eyebrows. Well, fine. I just suggested it. Let me be clear. I don't have any lingering feelings, okay? That's good to know. He was lying. She had a metric ton of lingering feelings. However, these kinds of matters couldn't be solved just because she insisted. Ultimately, Melkith didn't have anything that could change Eugene's mind. She was an archwizard and a tower master, so she had many valuable artifacts. However, she didn't have many artifacts that were better than the Cloak of Darkness. That was Melkith's magic armor and the artifact indefinitely belonged to her soul, so she could never give it to him. Anything less than the Cloak of Darkness is worth nothing. Since I lent him the Cloak of Darkness, he will only be interested in an artifact on the same level. She still had lingering feelings, but she didn't insist any further. This wasn't her primary goal anyway. Then how about this? Melkith grabbed Eugene's shoulders with her two hands. As you already know, I am the best spirit summoner in this century. No, in history. I am certain there won't be a better spirit summoner than me for at least 200 years after I die. Why 200 years? That's oddly specific. Are you seriously asking that? The Great Vermouth was born 300 years ago, right? I was born 200 years later than him. Come to think of it, Melkith idolized Vermouth for contracting with the Wind Spirit King, thought Eugene. Oh yeah. So, cheeky little kid, Melkith thought. She was so annoyed by Eugene that she almost crushed his shoulders. She smiled as she calmed down with difficulty. And I will teach you spirit summoning magic. You may already know this, but this is once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Your teacher Lovelian is a brilliant wizard. Still, his magic and spirit summoning magic are entirely different. There was a reason for her confidence. Melkith was an 8th circle archwizard who contracted with 2 spirit kings. Aren't people born with the ability for spirit summoning magic? Eugene lukewarmly asked. People may be born with spirit affinity. If they have magic talent on top of that, they can instantly contract with a spirit when they begin to feel mana. Geniuses are monsters with talent, Melkith answered as she snorted. As you said, innate talent is everything in spirit summoning magic. The reason I could make a contract with 2 spirit kings was that the lightning and earth spirits loved me ever since I was born. But so what? You're also called a genius. That's why I'm saying this. A genius can never understand a man of no genius. You could naturally use the spirit summoning magic ever since you were born, Lady Melkith, but I can't. How would it be possible for you to teach me spirit summoning magic? After letting Eugene's shoulder go, Melkith stepped back. If we just consider the talent as a wizard, then yes. Your teacher Lovelian is a better wizard than me. Yeah, I admit to that. I only reached the 8th circle by harmonizing the magic and the spirit summoning magic. But that's why I'm unique, kiddo. I may not be a better wizard than your teacher, but I have something that your teacher can never have. You sure do, Eugene answered half-heartedly. It also applies to you. You are a genius of the Lionheart family, the most prestigious warrior family. Besides all that, you are also born with the magic talent so high that you have already reached the 5th circle at 20. Thanks to WNYD, you can also control wind spirits. Melkith's index finger dramatically swung from side to side. Innate talent is pretty much everything. With effort, an ordinary person can improve, but they cannot become a genius. You must understand this too, kid. Unlike martial power and magic talent, you aren't born with spirit affinity, but it doesn't matter anymore since you can talk to the Wind Spirit King. You are able to use magic and control spirits right now. That's enough for you to learn. Eugene didn't answer and just stared at Melkith. She grinned and crossed her arms as she continued. Spirit summoning magic is about dealing with spirits, not magic. Just because someone is using a sword to cast magic, that doesn't make them a swordsman, don't you get it? That's why I'm going to teach you. There is no better teacher than me in this world, Melkith said. Of course, she had an ulterior motive. Melkith was planning on summoning the Wind Spirit King using WYD as a catalyst while she taught spirit summoning magic to Eugene. He could read her mind so clearly. Hamel. Tempest's voice sounded in Eugene's head. I hate her. Why? You may not know this, but she is not in her right mind. Do you know what she did with WD when you lent it to her without my permission? I don't know. She rubbed her naked body against the sword. I can't believe there is still a person who believes that barbaric and primal superstition. Tempest let out a yell. Superstition? The superstition about how the mix of a catalyst and a naked body triggers a spiritual response. How could a grand spirit summoner believe such superstition? Well, Tempest had kind of brought that upon himself. Melkith had called him dozens, hundreds of times, but he hadn't answered. Therefore Melkith had ended up using a barbaric method. That's not it. She swung WE against the wind on top of the tower, all naked to summon me. She even made some weird, inhuman sounds. Eugene kept listening to Tempest silently. I hate her. If you let her touch WYD again, I will never answer your call. Are you blackmailing me right now? So what? Do you think I will be sorry if you don't answer me? I will answer. But I hate her. Tempest desperately resisted. What's your answer? Melkith confidently asked. He says nope, Eugene answered right away. Melkith's face contorted instantly. Why not? Wait, he says. Who is he? Tempest. What? I haven't told you this yet, but I signed a contract with the Wind Spirit King. Eugene politely bowed and passed by Melkith. Mare also chuckled as she followed Eugene. Melkith stayed frozen for a while. Then she turned back, her neck stiff. She could see the shapes of Eugene and Mare in the distance. Where are you going? Melkith let out a yelp and chased after Eugene. Chapter 123, The Hearing 4. The Witch's Sweet Dream. It had been recommended by Hera from the Red Tower of Magic as the best dessert restaurant in Pentagon. They didn't take reservations, so there always was a line leading out the restaurant's doors. But with status, fame, and money, it was simple to overturn the rule of not taking reservations and secure a private table for themselves. They were quickly seated by a third-floor window that offered a great view. It's so pretty. Mare gasped in amazement. Mare's eyes twinkled like a starry sky as she looked at all the colorful desserts laid out in front of her on different plates. And they taste amazing. Mare squealed upon taking her first bite. She first tried the macarons stuffed full of cream. The cream, which anyone could tell tasted sweet just by looking at it, had even been studded with chocolate chips, and the smooth surface of the macarons was so brightly colored that it was hard to believe that it was a dessert. Mare trembled in delight as she munched on the stuffed macaron. No one is going to take it away from you, so eat a bit slower, Eugene nagged. Why do I need to eat any slower? Mare argued. It won't get stuck in my throat no matter how fast I eat, and I won't feel sick either. However, Mare still couldn't do anything about the size of her mouth. No matter how wide the tiny Mare opened her jaws, there was a limit to the amount of macaron that fit inside her mouth. As such, she was quickly biting, swallowing, and biting again. After all, there was no such thing as being full for her. All the food that she ate was decomposed into mana and disappeared the moment that it passed through her esophagus. Mare felt a deep gratitude that her body had been constructed this way. This meant that she could eat an infinite amount of delicious and sweet things, and she wouldn't gain any weight either. Just as she was happily contemplating the variety of cakes set out in front of her eyes, Mare's expression suddenly turned cold. Stop that, Mare demanded. Her hand, swinging as fiercely as if it was trying to swat down an annoying fly, struck the back of Melkith's hand. I'm the one who ordered these. How stingy. Melkith shrieked, her eyes widening as she glared at Mare. I'm not stingy, Mare denied. White Tower Master, you're just an uninvited guest. Sir Eugene and I didn't give you permission to accompany us. However, you brazenly and stubbornly insisted on following us here and sat down with us. I am the White Tower Master Melkith Elhaya, she declared proudly. In this land of wizards, there is nowhere I am not allowed to go. You really are shameless. Do you really believe that your position as the White Tower Master can just excuse your rudeness? Even if you do have such a status, or at least you think you do, that still isn't something that you should claim for yourself. Mare spat out as she cut into a chocolate cream-layered cake with her fork. Of course, I've already known that the White Tower Master was shameless ever since 28 years ago. 28 years ago? Melkith asked uncertainly. Have you forgotten? Mare kindly reminded her. It was in summer 28 years ago. Right before you rose to the seat of the White Tower Master, when you first entered Akron. Melkith's face turned pale. She quickly manipulated the mana of the space they were in so that none of the conversation at this table could leak out. Mare continued, "You approached witchcraft curiously, and exactly 6 minutes and 21 seconds later, you collapsed on the spot with a nosebleed and pissed yourself. I lasted at least 10 minutes. Melkith attempted to correct her. No, Mare denied it. It was 6 minutes and 21 seconds. Exactly. The only current Tower Masters to have come into contact with witchcraft and pissed themselves are you and the Blue Tower Master Herodis Usland. The Blue Tower Master at least managed to last for 11 minutes. Melkith was stunned silent. As Lady Sienna's former familiar, I feel like I should be proud of the fact that a few archwizards of the current era were unable to understand witchcraft and were instead forced to piss themselves. However, you should at least clean up your own secretions. Don't you agree? The Blue Tower Master cleaned his own mess up. However, you, the White Tower Master, just ran away without getting rid of it. How shameless." Mare pressured Melkith while still munching on her cake, as her shoulders shook in an unconscious response to the violent sweetness. The White Tower Master, I've never." As Melkith stammered in embarrassment, her hair floated upward on its own. "It was just one cake. That's all I wanted. Must I really listen to such disgrace for that? Really, how noisy. I'll give you one, so please be quiet." Mare gave in with a frown on her face as she pushed over to Melkith a cake that she had already taken a bite out of. Keek. Unable to contain her rage, Melkith let out a scream. It was a scream that Eugene happened to have heard several times before. "Really now," Eugene sighed. "Did you have to talk about dirty things like pee or bodily secretions when we're at a dining table?" "Sir Eugene, you should be proud of yourself," Mare complimented. "You were granted entry to Akron when you were 20 years younger than the White Tower Master, and you didn't pee yourself in front of witchcraft. Can you really bear to swallow the cake while talking about dirty stuff like that?" Eugene asked. "This cake is just that amazing," Mare insisted. "It's sweet but not too sweet. It doesn't cloy the palate and instead disappears with a refreshing aftertaste. Here, take a look at these layers of brilliantly whipped cream. How did they manage something like this? By magic. This store's pâtissier is said to have dozens of patents for baking magic. It might look just like ordinary cream, but each of those layers have had magic added to them to give it a different flavor," Melkith explained with a sulky pout. "No wonder," Mare muttered with a nod as she glanced at Eugene. "So that's why Sir Eugene keeps glaring at that cake like he wants to kill it. Isn't he just glaring like that because he wants to eat it?" Melkith asked in confusion. The answer to that was no. Eugene had no interest in the sweetness of the dessert that Mare so admired. Ever since his previous life, he preferred greasy, salty, and spicy food over sweet desserts. The reason why he was glaring despite all this was... Eugene hummed thoughtfully with narrowed eyes as he stuck his hand in his cloak and pulled out a cup. His mana began to move. Melkith realized what Eugene was trying to do and felt some interest in seeing the spells. Magic whose creators had gone so far as to register a patent wasn't the kind of magic that they would so easily share with others. The witch's sweet dream was called the best in Pentagon because its other competitors weren't able to imitate this shop's taste. The spell formula has been kept a secret. In the first place, flavor transformation magic is a non-mainstream magic that people outside of the industry seldom come across, Melkith recalled. On top of that, it was difficult. If Melkith was forced to classify it, this magic belonged to the enchantment side of things, and unlike tools and weapons which were often used as the base for enchantments, food was a very fragile material. Even a slight fluctuation in mana control or error in the formula could cause the whole form of the spell to collapse or decay, ruining the flavor. As long as you put the practice into it, it's doable, but compared to the effort you have to put in, there are clear limits on how far you can go with such magic, Melkith assessed. In the end, it's just making some food a bit more delicious. Could this brat really have put in the time to learn such magic? Indeed, it seemed that Eugene really was young and hot-blooded. Melkith smirked as she sipped her tea. Curiosity and the desire to experiment were virtues that all wizards should possess. Since there was no way that Eugene could have found out the spell formulas used by this shop, it appeared that he just wanted to try out this new type of formula he had encountered. "I'll get a good laugh out of it," Melkith decided. Eugene would definitely fail. If the spell were that easy to copy, this store wouldn't have been able to stay perched at the top of this industry for the past 10 years. Melkith readied her rounds as she prepared to laugh at Eugene's failure. Eugene hummed once more as his fingers poked the cake. There was a slight sparkle of light. Melkith's eyes widened in shock. That slight sparkle was proof that the exact same spell formula had just been applied to the cake. If some other spell formula had been applied, the different formulas would have clashed with each other, causing the cake to collapse. Did he actually apply the exact same formula? Melkith wondered in disbelief as she quickly poked the cake with an outstretched finger. Seeing this, Mare's face twisted in a horrible scowl as she spat out, "How rude." Melkith didn't hear this criticism, too busy thinking, it didn't collapse. What about the taste? She scooped up some cream with a finger and placed it into her mouth. The taste hadn't changed all that much, though there was a slight incongruity. Even so, this was already enough of a surprise. Just how in the world had Eugene done this? While Melkith analyzed how the flavor left in her mouth had differed from the previous taste, she stared at Eugene and asked, "Are you a regular to this store?" "This is my first time coming here," Eugene answered. "Then the magic you used just now?" "Well, I just copied what I saw." "You should know just how unbearably absurd that sounds to any wizard, don't you?" "It wasn't as easy as I'm making it sound," Eugene replied with a smirk. "I underestimated it because I thought it was just infusing a spell into the cake. From your point of view or mine, you can't really call this magic all that impressive. However, it's not a trivial piece of spell work. This type of magic requires a deep level of proficiency in order to be used properly, even if the actual circle level is low," Mare said with a complicated expression as she held her chin. "You said that you just copied what you saw. There's no way that you could have seen the spell formula being cast in front of you, so could it be an ability granted by Akasha?" "It allows me to understand most magic just by seeing it," Eugene revealed as he pointed to his own eyes. "I've tested it a few times, but I can comprehend any spells between the first and fifth circle. It doesn't really work that well from the sixth circle onwards." "It doesn't really work that well?" Melkith repeated as she laughed in disbelief. "The fact that you can say that means that you can still somewhat sense such magic in the first place, even if it is a spell that's of a higher level than your own circle." "That's right," Eugene confirmed. "That's not something you should reveal so easily, brat. Is it because you're not aware of how great an advantage it is to be able to see through higher ranks of magic than your own during a magic battle?" Melkith questioned exasperatedly. Eugene just grinned instead of replying. Melkith felt a dawning sense of horror from this smile. This brat wasn't her opponent right now. No matter how lacking in dignity Melkith was, she was nevertheless a grand spirit summoner who had made a contract with 2 spirit kings, and an archwizard who had reached the 8th circle. Right now he's still only 20 years old. With enough martial talent to be called the second coming of the Great Vermouth, after becoming the Red Tower Master's disciple, he has managed to reach the 5th circle in just 3 years, and now he's even inherited Sienna's legacy. Melkith counted off Eugene's accomplishments. Now that he had become Akasha's master as well, Eugene's achievements in magic were sure to rise even faster. Melkith couldn't imagine what circle Eugene might reach in only a year or so. Even worse, this guy can actually cast spells a circle above his own. He's still not up to my level. But perhaps, if it's not just with magic and instead he used everything that he has, he might even be able to combat a 7th circle wizard, assessed Melkith. This might be a bit disrespectful to the Lionheart clan's reputation, but Melkith couldn't help but feel that Eugene's talent was devilish. His young age and such talent, she honestly couldn't deny her desire for him. Anyone who saw such a gem in the rough would be fascinated by it. Melkith licked her lips with a distressed expression. If only he wasn't the disciple of the Red Tower Master, Melkith thought regretfully. She couldn't just steal someone else's disciple. However, there was nothing wrong with having a close relationship with them. Melkith didn't have the nasty habit of wanting to trample any junior with overflowing talent. Instead, she actually wanted to provide that talent with a bit of help, so that Eugene would owe her a favor in the future. "I'll teach you summoning magic," Melkith declared once she had finished her considerations. "I've already refused your help earlier," Eugene sighed. "Tempest really doesn't like you, Lady Melkith. That really hurts me deeply, but..." Melkith ground out through gritted teeth as she glared at Eugene. "I'm saying that I'll teach you summoning magic for free. I have no desire to force a contract with a spirit king who doesn't like me. I'll even make you a promise. I won't even lay a hand on W, nor will I try to mess with Tempest if you summon him." "Your poker face is really good," Eugene complimented. Melkith shouted in frustration. Ah, really? I, Melkith El-Haya, am promising that I'll teach you summoning magic without asking for anything in return. I don't really believe in costless favors, Eugene said with a tilt of his head as he smiled at her. Like she'd thought he really was a cheeky brat. Melkith returned his smile and folded her arms. Well, the truth is that it's not like I don't want anything from you, Melkith admitted. I'm hoping that as I teach you, our relationship will grow. Eugene confessed, I feel like I'm already pretty close to you, Lady Melkith. So are you going to learn spirit summoning magic from me or not? If you're offering to teach me, then I'll make sure to learn with gratitude. Eugene had no hesitation in accepting her offer this time around. At Eugene's reply, Melkith cackled and nodded her head. Good, she said. Right now is unsuitable, but I'll make sure to visit you soon. Why is it unsuitable? Eugene asked. My spirit summoning magic focuses on controlling spirits of earth and lightning, and you haven't contracted those spirits. I feel like you'll have a better chance of contracting the spirits of lightning instead of earth, but you don't have any affinity towards lightning spirits, Melkith judged. So what then? Eugene prompted. I said it before, didn't I? As long as you've signed a contract with the Spirit King of the Wind, your affinity with spirits isn't all that important. Although it's unlikely that you'll be able to sign a contract with the Spirit King of the Lightning like me, you should be able to make contracts with lightning spirits up to the intermediate level. As long as I provide a catalyst, you should also be able to finalize a contract, Melkith assured him. Instead of replying immediately, Eugene was lost in thought for a few moments. Lightning spirits are powerful. Even if it's only up to the intermediate level, they should be able to achieve excellent results when combined with your skills. With a voice inside of his head, Tempest came to Eugene's aid. Especially when combined with one of the weapons in your possession, the Thunderbolt Pernoa. If a lightning spirit lends its aid to the weapon, its power would be amplified and the mana consumption would be reduced. That sounds about right, Eugene agreed thoughtfully. Hamel. In your current list of skills, isn't there something you once called the lightning counter? If that skill is amplified with actual lightning, it won't just be called lightning, you might be able to develop it into a real lightning bolt. Mind shutting your pie hole? Eugene immediately interrupted Tempest as his face transformed into a scowl and he thrust WE back into his cloak. Once he regained his composure, Eugene addressed Melkith. There's also the fact that I won't be staying in Aroth for all that long. Since the hearing is over, I was planning to head back either today or tomorrow. Melkith snorted. So what if you're heading back? Why should that matter? You're just going to stay at the Lionheart clan's main estate, aren't you? That works out pretty well. I also happen to be interested in the elves staying at your main estate. To be more precise, rather than the elves, Melkith was interested in the trees that were said to have been brought with them. Seeing as how they were transported together with the elves from the depths of the rainforest, those were definitely the fairy trees that only grew in close vicinity to the elven territory. As long as I get close enough, I might be able to snag a branch for myself, Melkith thought greedily. A branch of a fairy tree was a precious material that you might not be able to find even if you had the money to purchase it. Currently it was extremely rare for any branches to be in circulation, and most of those that were had already been processed into items. Sir Eugene, Mare finally spoke up. While Eugene and Melkith had been focusing on their conversation, Mare had vacuumed up all of the desserts. While she wiped away the whipped cream covering her lips, her eyes were still sparkling up at Eugene. Could I please eat some more? She requested. Aren't you sick of those yet? Eugene asked. Sir Eugene, I haven't been able to eat anything for the past 200 years, Mare pointed out. Do you really think that I would get sick of such cakes after only eating a few of them? But that wasn't just a few cakes, Eugene argued as he turned to survey the empty plates in disbelief. Despite his protest, that didn't mean he wouldn't allow Mare to have some more. With a trembling expression on his face, Eugene nodded his head, causing Mare to hug Eugene's arm with a smile. Thanks, Mare said cheerfully. Melkith stared at Mare with wide eyes. Was this really the wise Sienna's familiar? The Mare that Melkith recalled wasn't so lively and cute. Well, this was probably due to Melkith having peed herself in Sienna's hall, but in any case she felt deeply surprised as she saw Mare show such a different attitude towards Eugene. Since this familiar has the body of a woman, could it be that she likes handsome young men? Melkith speculated. But no, Mare's current attitude wasn't like that, it was closer to the way a daughter would pester her father. Malkith quickly dismissed the thought. There's no way. If you count the years that familiar has been in operation, it should be well over 200. Although her mental age had been fixed by basing it on Sienna's childhood personality. Malkith scratched her cheek in confusion as she felt that this was quite a complicated situation. So you were here, a voice interrupted. Just as Eugene was about to call a waiter over to place another order, someone approached their table. The sarcastic voice continued, "It's nice to see you looking so relaxed, Eugene Lionheart." It was the Green Tower Master, Generic Osman. As he drew closer, Malkith narrowed her eyes and stood up to confront him. "Green Tower Master, I can't help but think of some pretty rude assumptions about you right now," Malkith admitted. Generic accepted her accusation. "I won't scold you for being rude. Because your assumptions are probably correct." "Huh? Are you being serious?" Malkith scoffed. "The hearing is over and Aratha's royal family has recognized E. But I haven't recognized him," Generic spat out as he glared at Eugene. "Even if Lady Sienna has recognized you and handed over the ownership of Akasha. As the patriarch of the Osman family and the master of the Green Tower of Magic, I must assess you personally." "How disgraceful," Malkith remarked with a sneer. "I really don't appreciate your overweening pride, Generic Osman." The wise Sienna had taught 3 disciples during her life. One of them was Lovelian's Grandmaster, who had served as the former Red Tower Master. The remaining 2 had stayed in the Green Tower of Magic, proceeded to marry and had children together. This was the Osman family. The 2's son had served as the former Green Tower Master, and his son was Generic Osman, the current Green Tower Master. But now that Eugene had become Akasha's owner, and thus Sienna's successor, the Osman family could no longer claim to be the legitimate heirs to her legacy. "Do you intend to defy Lady Sienna?" Eugene asked without standing up from his seat, simply staring at Generic. However, Generic refused to back down and just glared back at Eugene. "I," Generic declared, "believe that if you would claim to be the successor to the wise Sienna, then you must be the most exceptional wizard of your time." "Disgraceful," Malkith repeated. "And arrogant as well. The greatest wizard of your time? Could it be, are you really saying that you're confident enough to claim to be such a wizard?" Crackle. An electric current began to flow around Malkith. "You're really saying that in front of me?" Without hiding her hostility, Malkith glared at Generic as she hissed this question. Although her gaze was fierce, Generic didn't shrink back and just snorted. "I'm not free right now, but if you so desire, I'll gladly establish the pecking order between us, Malkith al-Haya. Although I admit that you're a worthy and respected wizard, I don't see you as above me." "Ahaha. Are you so old that you're going senile? If you really do think that way, then follow me outside right now." Malkith finished with a challenging roar. "I should have already told you I'm not free right now," Generic said as his eyes coldly looked Eugene up and down. "What I want to confirm today isn't who is superior between you and I. What I want to confirm is, between Eugene Lionheart and I, which of us 2 is the best suited to become Lady Sienna's successor." "You have no right to decide such a thing, Green Tower Master," Mare cut in. Although she'd been smiling softly just a few moments before, Mare was no longer laughing. She was now confronting Generic with a cold and stiff look on her face. "In the first place, it is ridiculously arrogant for you to even believe that you have the right to decide who has the better qualifications. If I had to say why, then it's because you're not qualified in the slightest," Mare coldly pronounced. "What?" Generic barked out indignantly. Mare explained, "Both you and your father. I'm saying that neither of you has the right to claim to be Lady Sienna's successor. Your grandfather, Weiss Osman, and your grandmother, Frilla Helen, may have been Lady Sienna's disciples, but that doesn't mean that their descendants can claim to be Lady Sienna's successors." Generic stewed in silence. "Instead, I believe that the only other person with the right to claim to be Lady Sienna's successor is the Red Tower Master, Lovelian Safis. Because Lovelian and his master at the very least, managed to show respect to myself, Lady Sienna's familiar," Mare explained. Generic shouted, "A mere familiar dares to—" Mare interrupted him, "Yes, I am a mere familiar. That might just be a fact, but if you truly claim to be Lady Sienna's successor, then it's inappropriate for me to look down on you as you are. I remember what happened 120 years ago. How your father had me dissected. Just how presumptuous they were in trying to dig into the core of witchcraft. Generic's face twisted into a scowl as he protested. My father was doing that for the sake of Lady Sienna. It was in remembrance of Lady Sienna that he was attempting to fully comprehend the witchcraft that she left behind for us. In remembrance? Mare repeated mockingly. Lady Sienna hasn't died. She's still alive and she has recognized Eugene as her successor. Enough, Eugene spoke up. So what the Green Tower Master is saying is, he doesn't recognize me as Akasha's master nor as Lady Sienna's successor. Have I got that right? Pushing his chair back, Eugene stood up. Well then, I'm happy to accept such a challenge. Because legitimate or not, it's that, for now, I am lacking in terms or being a wizard when compared to the Green Tower Master, Eugene easily admitted. For now. Generic ominously repeated. You have to consider our ages, of course. Take right now for example. Isn't it an ugly and shameful thing that someone who isn't as talented as me, whose only advantage is having lived 50 years longer, is actually questioning a young man's qualifications? Eugene asked mockingly as the corners of his mouth twisted upwards. Honestly speaking, I'm not sure what exactly it is you're trying to achieve, Green Tower Master. Are you really trying to get me to hand over Akasha on the grounds that I'm currently lacking as a wizard when compared to the Green Tower Master? Have you seriously come here thinking that would be accepted? Or else, could it be that you're so blinded by greed and jealousy that you want to take Akasha from me even if it means defying Lady Sienna, whom you claim to respect? As he asked these questions, Eugene reached into his cloak. In your opinion, do you really think that such stubbornness is acceptable? The Green Tower Master himself might believe that it is, but no one else who agrees will feel the same way. Do you really think that you'll be able to convince Aratha's royal family at this point? When they should currently be busy worrying that Lady Sienna might just drown Abram? Lady Sienna is also a rational wizard, Generic insisted, his eyes bulging as he glared at Eugene. Lady Sienna may have met you first, but she hasn't met me yet. Since my abilities are superiors to yours, why would Lady Sienna still choose you as her successor? So what are you going to do about it? Eugene challenged. Let's duel, Generic proposed as he looked inside the cloak that Eugene had unfurled. The staff that he wanted, Asha, was now in Eugene's hand. Of course, since there is a large difference between your skills and mine, an ordinary duel would be unfair. So I will limit myself and only use magic up to the 6th circle, said Generic. And me? Eugene prompted. You're free to use all the abilities in your possession. The Lionheart clan's martial arts and your magic, both are fine. Even if a wizard of the 8th circle were to limit themselves to using spells within the first 6 circles, their skill would definitely not be limited to that of an ordinary 6th circle wizard. Even if the spells were from a lower circle, they could match spells from a higher circle depending on how they were used. In the first place, the 8th circle wasn't something that could just be reached only by knowing spells that had a lot of power to them. A wizard's circle level depended on how deeply they understood magic itself. That was why the wall of the 8th circle was so high, and why anyone who crossed that wall was allowed to call themselves an archwizard. And if I refuse? Eugene tested him. Are you going to? Generic sneered. Of course not, Eugene snorted as he picked up a crumpled napkin that was on the table. If I lose, I will place Akasha in Akron and leave. You should hand it over to me, Generic proposed greedily. Eugene immediately refused. Absolutely not. This staff belongs to Lady Sienna, I'm just taking care of it for her. Generic's face stiffened at these words. He opened his mouth to say something but his voice couldn't come out. A napkin stained with whipped cream which Mare had used to wipe her lips, was thrown into Generic's chest. As he threw it, Eugene said, I will accept your challenge, Green Tower Master. The napkin struck Generic's chest and fell to the floor. If I win, I want you to apologize to Mare, Eugene stated. That's... Generic hesitated. Eugene further clarified his request. And I want you on your knees with your head bowed very respectfully. Generic's face reddened in anger.